Ikaw, ano ba masasabi mo pag narinig mo ang salitang Islam or Muslim?
Pag narinig ko ang salitang Islam or Muslim, ang naiisip ko ay tungkol sa political dynasty nila. So, yun.
Yung Islam naman, di ba, religion ng mga Muslim yun? Ayon sa kasulatan nila. Tsaka, balita ko sa Mindanao lang makikita ang mga Muslim. Dito sa Pilipinas. Pero sa ibang bansa, doon ata sa Saudi, yung mga Islam din, sa Jerusalem na tinatawag. Yun lang.
Pero Muslim mo kasi.
Pagka niniisip ko sa Muslim people, lalo na yung mga lalaki, sila yung pwedeng mag-asawa ng higit sa isa.
Islam, because hindi naman po ako Muslim na para sabihin na basta natitigil ko lang po as the word Islam is that Muslim language.
Salitang ano yun, Muslim, Ismail yun, anak ni Abraham. Islam means Ismail. Yun lang. Ano ba gusto mong malaman sa Islam? Wala na. Yan lang.
Salitang Islam o Muslim, nakikita, naalala ko yung mga nagtitinda sa tabi-tabi, yung mga DVD, yun lang, salamat.
Islam. It is a monotheistic religion that is based on the Quran, a text considered by these addresses to the verbatim word of God, and by the teachings and normative examples, called the Sunnah and composed of hadith of Muhammad, considered by them to be the last prophet of God. Muslims believe that God is one and incomparable, and the purpose of existence is to love and serve God. Muslims also believe that Islam is the complete and universal version of a primordial faith that was revealed at many times and places before, including Abraham, Moses, and Jesus, whom they consider prophets. They maintain that previous messages and revelations had been partially changed or corrupted over time, but consider the Quran to be altered and the final revelation of God. Did you know that the most populous Muslim country in the world is Indonesia? Yes. Indonesia is home to 12.7% of the world's Muslims, followed by Pakistan with 11%, India with 10.9%, and Bangladesh with 9.2%. Etymology and meaning. Islam is a verbal noun originating from the triliteral root SLM, which forms a large class of words mostly relating to concept of fullness, completion, and bonding or joining. In a religious context, it means voluntary submission to God. Articles of faith. The core beliefs of Islam are that there is only one God, unitary and beyond comprehension, and that Muhammad is the prophet of God, the last in a series of prophets beginning with Adam. The Quran is upheld as the eternal, literal word of God, and revelations to earlier prophets, as seen in the Jewish Torah and Christian Gospels, are believed to have become distorted by human intervention. Belief in the day of judgment, when all people will undergo bodily resurrection and be judged by God, is another core tenet. God. Islam's most fundamental concept is a rigorous monotheism, called Tawhid. God is described in chapter 112 of the Quran, say, He is God, the one and only, God, the eternal, absolute. He begetteth not, nor He is begotten, and there is none like unto Him. Muslims believe that creation of everything in the universe is brought into being by God's sheer command, be, and so it is, and that the purpose of existence is to love and serve God. Allah is the term with no plural or gender used by Muslims and Arabic-speaking Christians and Jews, meaning the one God, while Ilah is the term used for a deity or a God in general. Revelations. The Islamic holy books are the records which most Muslims believe were dictated by God to various prophets. Muslims believe that parts of the previously revealed scriptures, the Torah and the Injil or Gospels, had become distorted, either in interpretation, in text, or both. The Quran, literally reading or recitation, is viewed by Muslims as the final revelation and literal word of God, and is widely regarded as the finest piece of literature work in the Arabic language. Muslims believe that the verses of the Quran were revealed to Muhammad by God through the Archangel Gabriel, or Jibril, on many occasions between 610 CE until his death on June 8, 632 CE. While Muhammad was alive, all of these revelations were written down by his companions or Sahaba, although the prime method of transmission was orally through memorization. After the death of Muhammad, it was compiled in the time of Abu Bakr, the first caliph, and was standardized under the administration of Uthman, the third caliph. The Quran is divided into 114 surahs or chapters, which combined contain 6,236 ayat or verses. The Quran is more concerned with moral guidance than legal instruction and is considered as the source book of Islamic principles and values. Muslim jurists consult the Hadith, or the written record of Prophet Muhammad's life, to both supplement the Quran and assist with its interpretation. Prophets. Muslims identify the prophets of Islam, or Nabi, as those humans chosen by God to be His messengers. According to the Quran, the descendants of Abraham and Imran were chosen by God to bring the will of God to the peoples of the nations. Muslims believe that prophets are human and not divine, though some are able to perform miracles to prove their claim. Islam theology says that all of God's messengers preach the message of Islam, submission to the will of God. Muslims believe that God finally sent Muhammad, or seal of the prophets, to convey the divine message to the whole world.
Resurrection and Judgment. Belief in the Day of Resurrection, Yawm al-Qiyamah, is also crucial for Muslims. They believe the time of Qiyamah is preordained by God but unknown to man. On Yawm al-Qiyamah, Muslims believe all mankind will be judged on their good and bad deeds. 5 pillars. The testimony. The Shahada, which is the basic creed of Islam that must be recited under the oath with a specific statement, I testify there are no deities other than God alone, and I testify that Muhammad is the messenger of God. The prayer. Ritual prayers called Salah or Salat must be performed 5 times a day. Salah is intended to focus the mind on God and is seen as a personal communication with Him that expresses gratitude and worship. A mosque is a place of worship for Muslims, who often refer to it by its Arabic name, masjid. Almsgiving. Zakat. Zakat is giving a fixed portion of accumulated wealth by those who can afford it to help the poor or needy, and also to assist the spread of Islam. Fasting. Fasting from food and drink must be performed from dawn to dusk during the month of Ramadan. The fast is to encourage a feeling of nearness to God, and during it, Muslims should express their gratitude for and dependence on Him, atone to their past sins, and think of the needy. Pilgrimage. The pilgrimage called the Hajj during the Islamic month of Dhul Hijjah in the city of Mecca. Every able-bodied Muslim who can afford it must make the pilgrimage to Mecca at least once in his or her lifetime. Etiquette and diet. This includes greeting others with Assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you, saying Bismillah in the name of God before meals, and using only the right hand for eating and drinking. Islamic hygienic practices mainly fall into the category of personal cleanliness and health. Circumcision of male offspring is also practiced in Islam. Islamic burial rituals include saying the Salat al-Janaza funeral prayer over the bathed and enshrouded dead body and burying it in a grave. Muslims are restricted in their diet. Prohibited foods include pork products, blood, carrion, and alcohol. All meat must come from herbivorous animals slaughtered in the name of God by a Muslim, Jew, or Christian, with the exception of game that one has hunted or fished for oneself. Food permissible for Muslims is known as halal food. Caliphate and Civil War. With Muhammad's death in 632, disagreement broke out over who would succeed him as a leader of a Muslim community. Umar al-Khattab, a prominent companion of Muhammad, nominated Abu Bakr, who was Muhammad's companion and close friend. Others added their support and Abu Bakr was made the first caliph. Abu Bakr's immediate task was to avenge a recent defeat by Byzantine forces, although he first had to put down a rebellion by Arab tribes in an episode known as the Rida Wars or Wars of Apostasy. Abbasid era. Expansion of the Muslim world continued by both conquest and proselytism as both Islam and Muslim trade networks were extending into sub-Saharan West Africa, Central Asia, Volga, Bulgaria, and the Malay Archipelago. The Ghaznavids and Ghurids conquered much of the Indian subcontinent. Many Muslims went to China to trade, virtually dominating the import and export industry of the Song dynasty. Fall of Abbasids to end of Caliphate. Expansion continued with independent powers moving into new areas. An alliance of European Christian kingdoms mobilized to launch a series of wars, known as the Crusades, aimed at capturing the Holy Land, though initially successful, was reversed by subsequent Muslim generals such as Saladin, who recaptured Jerusalem in 1187.
Modern times. Contact with industrialized nations brought Muslim populations to new areas through economic migration. Many Muslims migrate as indentured servants from mostly India and Indonesia to the Caribbean, forming the largest Muslim populations by percentage in the Americas. The resulting urbanization and the increase in trade in sub-Saharan Africa brought Muslims to settle in new areas and spread their faith, likely doubling the Muslims' population between 1869 and 1914. Muslim immigrants, many as guest workers, began arriving largely from former colonized into several European nations in the 1960s and the 1970s, particularly France and the UK. Criticism of Islam. Objects of criticism include the morality of the life of Muhammad, the last prophet of Islam, both in his public and personal life. Issues relating to the authenticity and the morality of the Quran, the Islamic holy book, are also discussed by critics. Other criticism focus on the question of human rights in modern Islamic nations and the treatment of women in Islamic law and practice. In wake of the recent multiculturalism trend, Islamic influence on the ability of Muslim immigrants in the West to assimilate has been criticized.